thank you guys so much for coming on the show. We're very excited to have you.
Wow, those are some bright lights.
Sure. They only get brighter over the course. Eventually this becomes like a mini sun. That's not true.
I also radiate and my own energy and light, so I'm sorry. Half of you will have sunburn.
I'm better now. Carry on.
Yes, thank you guys so much for coming on. Tom, let's chat with you first. So, general question, how did you get into comics?
You mean the business or the reading of it?
The business.
The business. I was an illustration major at the University of Delaware. And I'd always been interested in comics since I was 6. I always sort of figured I was going to go off and do comics. And the freshman year at orientation, whoever the head of the department was gave this whole spiel about here's how the program works, and you're going to do this, and then this year you do this, and this year you do this, and finally in your senior year you go out and you get an internship in somewhere in the field. We put people here, and this and that and the other. And we had one guy even go to Marvel Comics, and I thought, and so 3 years later I applied for an internship at Marvel and at DC, and I'm still waiting for my DC reply. I go to the mailbox every day. I'm very excited. One day, it's going to come. So I ended up.
So you're saying if you got offered an internship at DC, you would do it like that?
Well, I figure I could do the internship at DC after my regular job. 3 or 4 titles over there, no problem. Kind of like my summer job or my evening job. My paper route on the side.
Now let me ask you, I had a similar plan where I was like, I want to go, I want to do comedy for a living, and my parents were like hell you are. No, you can't do that.
That's because you're you. I am me. And people said, go, anything, get out of here. Whatever. So
It's loved by apathy.
So I went and I did an internship in the summer of 1989 for 3 months with a number of editorial offices, and then by end of that year, December that year, I was hired out as an assistant editor, and I've been hanging around the place ever since.
One thing that I think particularly interesting that you do at Marvel is you blog a lot, which I think
I
is
don't know if I'm going to blog a lot.
almost too much. I would say. I actually think it's a rarity for somebody who is insider in the industry, because is that a gun? Or are you going to
Yes. I do blog, and I have my video camera here. I'm going to shoot a few seconds.
I hold still for a video camera.
This is what it looks like.
Everybody say, hi,
Videos are awesome!
Hello there, vlog.
This is
Mostly lights.
most popular video on the internet.
Dancing Bendis.
To be this open in an industry is interesting and somewhat is refreshing as well. I mean, how do you feel that you can have this openness? How do you feel you can have this honesty and this rapport with fans?
Well, I think that's a sort of natural thing, particularly a Marvel thing. Going all the way back to Stan and what he did, he always tried to create that clubhouse atmosphere or behind the curtain look at stuff. And the technology has improved and made the world a smaller place, and made the industry a smaller place, almost too much so in certain cases. But I'm happy to go out there and chat with people and share and let them know what's going on from my point of view or whatever, because I know that if the internet existed 25 years earlier, I would have been there all the time. Waiting, please, John Byrne, reply to my post, tell me or whatever it would have been. So, it's an opportunity, it's a thing that's there, and I figure I might as well use it.
And I think it's interesting also that Marvel is doing this much outreach towards the web.
Well,
how involved are you in that, and how do you actually find the time to do it?
Well, when you talk about outreach to the web, we're doing a lot of different things in terms of digital, the digital comic online, and the new thing with Stephen King, the sort of, I don't remember what the term is, Marvel something comics that are little animated stories or whatever, but that's legitimately the future. I said this at a panel in Chicago, and the people at the panel were all, boo, terrible, why are you saying this to us? We like our paper and our staples. I like our paper and our staples too, but the plain fact of the matter is, every person under the age of blah, blah, blah is walking around with a little personal dingus and a watch that you know,
It's a technical term.
Personal dingus.
watch that can interface with satellites and a DVD player in their back pocket, and this is how they're used to getting their entertainment.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a transition, there's going to be a shift, and comics in one way, or one form or another, are always going to exist. But the delivery system is going to change and evolve and adapt over time, and nobody quite knows exactly what it's going to be. But it's better to be out there and go, this technology exists, rather than being a Luddite and go, no, I like my horse and buggy, thank you. It's better to invest in, well, you know, they're making these things now, these automobiles. Let's check that out and get on the ground floor of that, and maybe our first one will only have 3 wheels and run on gum, but, you know, it's a step in the right direction.
Cool. Well, I'm sure we'll talk much more about this, but let's chat with Wyatt for a little bit. So we were talking about this backstage. How did you get into comics?
I got into comics, I was in 2nd grade, and there was a kid who moved to my town in Dallas, and so we became friends, and he got me into comic books, and his name was Brian K. Vaughan. And, so I have to thank Brian K. Vaughan for getting me into comic books. Unlike most people who are like, yeah, I'd like to thank Brian K. Vaughan for getting like my girlfriend into comic books.
You know, there's a joke there, but I'm not going to go there.
But yeah, so it was Brian. Brian he had like tons of comic books, and I think Batman was the first thing I read. And so yeah.
Not to make you repeat everything you said, but there was a little bit of a story about...
Oh, right, because Tom had asked me to tell something.
I asked for one embarrassing Brian K. Vaughan story. 2nd grade to the 3rd grade, which would be the statute of limitations on such a story. So,
And the thing that I
preferably something that I could use the next time I had occasion to call or email Brian.
The thing that I was telling them backstage, the first thing that came to mind was when Brian was really little, he liked to crawl on things, and
He still does.
which is so strange, because yeah, now he's crawling on things he could easily just step up to. But,
I thought it was some kind of lost initiation, but no, he really likes it.
he really wants to climb on that ottoman. But he liked to climb on things, and his brother David, who's a year older, and when they were little, David hated Brian. And so one day, like, Brian was climbing, and he climbed on, like, the oven door, and David saw that as his opportunity to shut the oven door and lock Brian in and turn the oven off.
And that's where Runaways came from.